I walked into that luxury car event and nobody noticed me. To them, I was just a poor kid from the countryside. But when I pulled out the keys to the most expensive vehicle in the showroom, silence fell over the place. Subscribe to the channel now and see how a simple farmer's son made everyone eat their words. The Richmond Luxury Automobile Show attracted the cream of Virginia society. It was an exclusive event where the wealthiest displayed their purchasing power and status amid champagne flutes and conversations about million-dollar investments. The immense pavilion, decorated with golden lights and mirrored panels, housed the most expensive and exclusive cars on the market. Among guests in Italian suits and designer dresses, Ryan Mitchell seemed like a fish out of water. At 28, he wore a simple shirt, faded jeans, and leather boots worn from constant use. His brown hair slightly disheveled, and his stubble contrasted with the impeccable appearance of the other attendees. Ryan walked calmly among the vehicles, observing each technical detail with genuine interest. His brown eyes revealed knowledge and admiration, while his calloused fingers occasionally touched the gleaming bodywork with the respect of someone who understands the value of what they're contemplating. "Hey, security! I think someone got lost in here," Marcus Ainsworth commented to his friend, laughing loud enough for Ryan to hear. Marcus was the typical presumptuous heir. At 30, he managed the fortune built by his father in Richmond's real estate market. Beside him, Lucas Foster and Grant Parker, equally arrogant, laughed while observing the intruder. "Must be one of the cleaning staff who forgot their uniform," Lucas said, adjusting the gold watch on his wrist. "Or maybe he's looking for something to steal." Ryan heard the comments but continued his silent walk. His discreet smile revealed a confidence that intrigued. He seemed immune to the disdainful looks and malicious comments. Barbara Carter, the event organizer, observed the situation from a distance. At 45, she knew the most influential families in American agribusiness. Something about that young man seemed familiar to her, but she preferred to keep her distance. After all, an event of that magnitude demanded her attention to more important details. The highlight of the evening would be the auction of the Golden Star, an exclusive model valued at over $15 million. Only 5 units existed in the world, and one of them would be presented firsthand in the United States. "Ladies and gentlemen, in 30 minutes we will begin the auction," announced the presenter over the sound system. "We ask interested parties to proceed to the main hall." At the center of the event, Marcus's group chatted animatedly about who would win the jewel on wheels. "My father gave me carte blanche," Marcus boasted. "He said it's time to show who's in charge in this region." Meanwhile, Ryan approached, a young woman who was discreetly observing one of the vehicles on display. Carly Sullivan, 26, was a journalist covering the event for a magazine specializing in luxury automobiles. "Impressive how they managed to balance performance and sustainability in this model, don't you think?" Ryan commented, surprising Carly with his technical knowledge. "You know about cars?" she asked, intrigued by the simple appearance of the young man who spoke with such authority. "A little. I grew up working with engines," he replied with a gentle smile. "And you?" "I'm a journalist specializing in automobiles," Carly explained, adjusting her thin-framed glasses. "I'm here for work, covering the auction." The conversation was flowing naturally when they were interrupted by Marcus and his friends. "Hey, country boy, the hardware store is on the other side of town," Marcus provoked, positioning himself between Ryan and Carly in an intimidating manner. "People like you shouldn't be here." Carly felt uncomfortable with the rudeness, but before she could intervene, Ryan responded with disconcerting calmness. "You know, Marcus, true luxury isn't in the cars we buy, but in the character we build." Marcus was surprised to hear his name. "How do you know who I am?" "In this world, it's always good to know who's talking before opening your mouth," Ryan replied, maintaining the same serene tone. The group was momentarily speechless. Lucas stepped forward, clearly irritated. "Listen, here, Hick. I don't know how you got in, but I suggest you leave before we call security." Ryan just smiled and walked away, leaving Carly intrigued and Marcus's group with a strange feeling of discomfort. There was something about that simple man that didn't fit the role of a mere intruder. As he walked through the hall, Ryan carefully observed each reaction, each look of contempt. For him, this social game was like an experiment. Raised among tractors and harvesters in his family's extensive wheat fields in Montana, he was used to being underestimated when he didn't use the surname he carried. Barbara Carter finally recognized the young man and approached discreetly. "Mr. Mitchell, I didn't expect to see you here today," she said in a low voice. "I prefer just Ryan, Barbara, and I wanted to see the event without formalities," he replied. "My father always says it's behind the scenes that we get to know people's true character." "Your father is a wise man," Barbara agreed. "Should I announce your presence?" "Not at all. I'm having a lot of fun with the anonymity," Ryan smiled. "Besides, I want to see Marcus Ainsworth's face when he discovers who's really interested in the Golden Star." The guests began heading to the main hall, where the auction would take place. The gleaming vehicle occupied the center of the stage, under strategically positioned lights that enhanced every curve of its golden body. Ryan positioned himself discreetly at the back of the hall. Carly, still intrigued by the interrupted conversation, sat nearby, hoping to discover more about this mysterious automobile expert. The auctioneer took the stage, adjusted the microphone, and began the most anticipated event of the night. Meanwhile, Marcus and his friends occupied privileged seats in the front row, confident that the Golden Star would soon have a new owner. The auctioneer enthusiastically began presenting the Golden Star. The audience listened attentively as he detailed the vehicle's technical specifications, its revolutionary engine, and the exclusive materials used in its manufacture. "We'll start the bidding at $10 million, announced the auctioneer, generating a buzz among those present. Marcus raised his paddle immediately, demonstrating confidence. Two other businessmen also showed interest. The value quickly rose to $12 million, then 13. Carly observed everything, taking notes for her report, but her attention remained divided between the auction and the mysterious Ryan at the back of the hall. As the bidding continued, Ryan's mind traveled to the past. He remembered his childhood at Horizon Ranch, his family's property in Sunnyvale, Montana. Although he was the only child of Andrew Mitchell, one of the country's largest wheat producers, his parents always made a point of raising him with simple values. "Son, money is like rain, necessary for growth, but alone it doesn't guarantee a good harvest," his father would say. "Character is the seed that plants the future." As a teenager, Ryan worked like any other employee on the ranch during school vacations. He would wake before sunrise, feed the animals, help maintain the tractors and harvesters. His hands, now observed with disdain by Marcus and his friends, had gained honest calluses on that land. At 18, he went to study mechanical engineering in San Francisco, then completed a master's in business administration in the United States. At 25, he was already running the Technological Innovation Division of the Mitchell Group, responsible for implementing sustainable farming techniques and modernizing the fleet of agricultural machinery. His passion for automobiles came from his father, who collected both antique and modern cars. The Golden Star would be a special addition to the collection, not for status but for the revolutionary engineering it represented. "15 million, shouted the auctioneer, bringing Ryan back to the present. "We have $15 million. From Mr. Ainsworth." Marcus smiled triumphantly, looking around as if challenging anyone to exceed his bid. His friends patted him on the back, celebrating prematurely. Ryan then raised his hand discreetly. $16 million, he said with a firm yet serene voice. The entire hall turned to identify who had made the bid. Marcus frowned as he recognized Ryan, and a laugh escaped his lips. "The hick is joking," he exclaimed, provoking laughter among some guests. "He must be confusing millions with thousands." The auctioneer, an experienced professional, maintained his composure. "Sir, do you confirm the bid of 16 million? "I confirm," Ryan replied calmly. Barbara Carter approached the auctioneer and whispered something in his ear. The man nodded, understanding. 16 million from the gentleman at the back of the hall. Does anyone offer more?" Marcus, irritated, raised his paddle again. 17 million. Carly observed the scene, fascinated. As an attentive journalist, she perceived that there was a much bigger story happening before her eyes. Discreetly, she took out her cell phone and searched for the name Ryan Mitchell. The results left her speechless. She quickly understood the game that was unfolding in that hall. 18 million, offered Ryan without altering his casual tone. Marcus hesitated. His father had set a limit of 20 million, but he didn't expect to face serious competition, especially from someone with Ryan's, appearance. Doubt began to erode his confidence. 19 million, said Marcus, with a slightly trembling voice. Lucas and Grant exchanged worried glances. They knew their friend well and knew he was exceeding his comfortable financial limit, driven more by wounded pride than reason. Ryan observed the scene with interest. It wasn't about the car, it never was. It was about the lesson that moment could teach. A lesson about humility, about respect, about looking beyond appearances. 20 million, said Ryan, maintaining the same calm tone. The hall fell into absolute silence. Marcus felt the weight of the gazes upon him. His pride screamed for him to continue, but his bank account begged for sensibility. 21, Marcus began, but was interrupted by Lucas, who held his arm. Think carefully, Marcus. Your father will kill you. Marcus hesitated, indecision stamped on his face. Finally, with visible reluctance, he lowered his paddle. 20 million once, intoned the auctioneer. 20 million twice. Sold for $20 million to the gentleman at the back of the hall. Polite applause echoed through the environment, while the whispers began. Who was that simple-looking man who had just shelled out 20 million without blinking? Ryan walked calmly to the stage to sign the documents. On the way, he passed by Marcus and his group, who observed him with a mixture of contempt and confusion. Who are you, anyway? Asked Marcus, unable to contain his curiosity. Someone your father knows very well, Ryan replied enigmatically. Carly approached, holding her notepad. Mr. Mitchell, could you grant an interview about your acquisition? She asked, revealing that she knew his identity. Marcus's eyes widened at hearing the surname. Mitchell? You're Andrew Mitchell's son? Ryan smiled. The very one. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have documents to sign. As Ryan walked away, an embarrassed silence fell over Marcus and his friends. Barbara Carter, who was passing nearby at that moment, couldn't resist a comment. Andrew Mitchell controls more than 500,000 acres of productive land in the Midwest, in addition to 3 grain processing plants and a fleet of trucks that exports throughout North America and Asia. The Hick, as you called him, is responsible for the group's Technological Innovation Division, valued at several billion. Marcus's face paled. He remembered that his father had mentioned several times that he would like to do business with the Mitchell Group, but had never managed to get a meeting with the patriarch. On stage, Ryan signed the documents with the same tranquility he had demonstrated throughout the event. Upon receiving the keys to the Golden Star, he briefly inspected the vehicle, like someone who deeply understands the object they are acquiring. Carly waited patiently beside the stage. As an experienced journalist, she knew she had in her hands a story much more valuable than the simple sale of a luxury car. It was a story about prejudice, about the arrogance of hasty judgments, about the silent humility that often accompanies true wealth. Mr. Mitchell, congratulations on your acquisition, said the auctioneer, handing over the documents. Would you like to say a few words to those present? Ryan thought for a moment. His eyes scanned the hall, lingering briefly on Marcus and his friends, who still seemed stunned by the revelation. Then, with a slight smile, he replied, I think I've said everything I needed to. The cocktail reception that followed the auction had a completely different atmosphere. The looks directed at Ryan were no longer of disdain, but of curiosity and interest. Businessmen who had previously ignored him now approached with business cards in hand, trying to establish contact with the heir to the Mitchell empire. The same people who minutes ago had agreed with Marcus about the Hick's inappropriate presence were now vying for his attention. Ryan observed this transformation with a mixture of irony and sadness. Throughout his life, he had witnessed how the Mitchell surname opened doors, changed expressions, and altered behaviors. It was precisely for this reason that he sometimes preferred anonymity, the chance to see the world without the filter of family fortune. It's fascinating how knowledge about who we are changes people's perception, isn't it? He commented to Carly, who had approached with a glass of sparkling water. It happens all the time in journalism, she replied. Celebrities complain that they never know if people like them or what they represent. Ryan smiled, recognizing in Carly an observer as attentive as himself. The journalist didn't seem impressed by his status, just genuinely interested in the story behind the man. "Did I finally get an exclusive interview?" she asked, with a confident smile. "I think so," Ryan agreed. "Where can we talk more quietly?" They moved away from the main buzz, finding a more private space near an exhibition of classic engines. Carly prepared her recorder, while Ryan observed with genuine interest a restored V8 engine from the 1960s. "This engine is a work of art," he commented, pointing to specific details of the piece. "In the old days, engineers had to solve problems without computers or simulations. There was an elegance in mechanical solutions." Carly realized that this wasn't a rehearsed observation from someone trying to impress. Ryan truly understood and admired these machines. "Why maintain anonymity?" she began, getting straight to the point. "Most heirs would insist on being recognized." Ryan turned his attention to the journalist, taking a sip of water before answering. "My father always says that a person's character is revealed when they don't know who you are. I've been coming to these events for years, sometimes in a suit and tie announced as Ryan Mitchell. The experience is completely different. And what do you learn from that?" "I learn who's worth really getting to know," he answered simply. "People like Marcus Ainsworth exist in all social classes. The difference is that some have money to amplify their arrogance." Carly noted every word, fascinated by her interviewee's unique perspective. "How did this social experiment begin?" Ryan smiled at the memory. "In college, I studied mechanical engineering in San Francisco, living in a regular student apartment, away from luxury condos. In the first semester, nobody knew who my family was. I made real friendships based on common interests and mutual respect. When they eventually found out, some completely changed their behavior. Others remained exactly the same. Those people," he made a significant pause, "are my friends to this day." "Was the car an investment or just a way to teach a lesson?" asked Carly, realizing there was more to that purchase than it appeared. Ryan laughed. "A perceptive question. The Golden Star is a masterpiece of automotive engineering. Its hybrid engine technology is revolutionary and will be implemented in our new line of harvesters. So, let's say it was an investment in research and development, with the bonus of providing an educational moment. Did you plan all this, provoking Marcus?" "I didn't specifically plan it," Ryan clarified. "But when I realized the dynamic that was establishing itself, I decided to go with the flow. Marcus put himself in that position alone. I just didn't interrupt the process." Carly observed Ryan with growing admiration. There was a quiet intelligence in his words, a wisdom that seemed beyond his 28 years. On the other side of the hall, Marcus observed the scene with a mixture of envy and regret. His father, Albert Ainsworth, had just arrived at the event and, upon being informed about the incident, showed visible disappointment. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Albert reprimanded in a low but firm voice. "I've been trying to schedule a meeting with Andrew Mitchell for months to discuss a possible partnership, and you insult his son?" Marcus stared at the floor, feeling diminished like a child caught in mischief. "I didn't know who he was, Dad. He looked like a worker," Albert completed, "and that justifies treating him with disrespect. Andrew started as a small farmer, with only 100 acres inherited from his father. He built an empire with hard work and intelligence. His son grew up seeing that example. No wonder he values simplicity." His father's words weighed on Marcus. For the first time, he realized the dimension of his error, not just strategic, but human. "What should I do now?" he asked, genuinely uncertain. Albert sighed, disappointment still evident in his countenance. "What any man should do when he makes a mistake. Acknowledge it and apologize. Not out of interest in the Mitchell family's business, but because it's the right thing to do." Marcus nodded, feeling an uncomfortable mixture of shame and resentment. Throughout his life, Things had been easy for him. The Ainsworth surname had opened doors. His money had guaranteed privileges, and his social circle had reinforced the idea that he was above others. Confronting his own prejudice was a new and disconcerting experience. Meanwhile, Barbara Carter approached Ryan and Carly. "Mr. Mitchell, your vehicle is ready to be picked up whenever you wish." "Thank you, Barbara. And please, just Ryan is fine." "As you wish," she replied with a smile. "Your father called confirming his presence at next week's charity dinner. He asked me to remind you." "I won't forget," Ryan assured, before turning his attention back to Carly. "Where were we?" "You were telling me about how the Golden Star could benefit agribusiness," Carly reminded him, resuming the interview. Ryan enthusiastically explained how technology developed for luxury cars often ended up benefiting other sectors of the economy. He talked about sustainability, about how the Mitchell Group invested in research to reduce the environmental impact of large-scale agriculture, and how the Golden Star technology fit into that vision. "My grandfather used to say that the land is a loan from future generations," said Ryan, with evident respect in his voice. "We can't simply exploit it to exhaustion. We need to find ways to produce that allow our grandchildren to produce as well." The passion with which he spoke about sustainable agriculture was contagious. Carly realized that beyond being the heir to a fortune, she was interviewing someone with purpose and vision. The conversation was interrupted when Albert Ainsworth approached alone. "Mr. Mitchell," Albert greeted formally. "Albert Ainsworth, I'd like to apologize for my son's behavior." Ryan stood up, extending his hand for a greeting. "Mr. Ainsworth, there's no need. Your son merely reacted to the image I presented. Perhaps the lesson was more valuable for him than a simple formal greeting between heirs would have been." Albert nodded, recognizing the wisdom in the young man's words. "Even so, I hope this doesn't affect the possibility of discussing business in the future. Your family has a sustainable management model that I greatly admire. You would be welcome at Horizon Ranch whenever you like. My father values partnerships with people who share our long-term vision. I have proposals for logistical optimization in grain exports that might interest your group," continued Albert, clearly relieved by Ryan's receptiveness. "Send the preliminary documents to my office. I'll analyze them personally before forwarding them to my father," Ryan replied. The conversation between the two was brief but significant. Carly, observing attentively, realized that she was witnessing more than a simple business reconciliation. It was a meeting of philosophies, a moment when social masks fell and the true meaning of respect and dignity emerged. "I appreciate your understanding, Mr. Mitchell," said Albert, ending the conversation. "And I admire your attitude. Not every young man in your position would be able to react with such maturity to a situation like this. My parents made a point of teaching me that respect should be above any financial condition," Ryan replied. "And please call me Ryan." After Albert's departure, Ryan excused himself to Carly, explaining that he needed to check his new vehicle. She accompanied him to the VIP parking lot, where the Golden Star waited, gleaming under the external lights. "It's even more impressive in the open air," commented Carly, admiring the aerodynamic curves of the automobile. Ryan ran his hand gently over the hood, with the care of someone who appreciates not just the value, but the engineering behind the machine. "You know, Carly, I grew up learning that everything we have is transitory. My grandfather lost almost everything in a big drought in the 80s. My father rebuilt from scratch. What remains are the lessons, the values. Is that why you don't care about appearances?" "Let's say I prefer to be underestimated rather than feared," he replied with a smile. "When people expect little from you, they have more chances to show who they really are." Ryan opened the car door, inspecting the interior with the technical eye of an engineer. The instrument panel was a perfect combination of cutting-edge technology and elegant design. He explained to Carly details about the engine, the hybrid propulsion system, the sustainable materials used in the upholstery. "You seem to know every bolt in this car," observed Carly. "I spent months studying the project," admitted Ryan. "When you grow up among agricultural machinery, you end up developing a different perspective on mechanics. Each piece has a function, Every detail matters. At that moment, Marcus appeared in the parking lot. This time he was alone, without the company of friends who previously reinforced his arrogance. His countenance was a mixture of embarrassment and determination. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked Ryan, visibly uncomfortable. Ryan nodded, and Carly discreetly moved away to give them privacy, but remained close enough to hear the conversation. "I came to apologize," said Marcus, with evident difficulty in pronouncing the words. "I was arrogant and prejudiced." Ryan observed him for a moment, evaluating the sincerity of those words. "Are you apologizing because you discovered who I am, or because you realized you were wrong?" The question caught Marcus by surprise. He hesitated, reflecting honestly, for the first time that night. "Initially because I discovered who you are," he admitted, surprising himself with the honesty. "But talking with my father, I realized that it wouldn't matter who you were. Nobody deserves to be treated as I treated you." Marcus paused, gathering courage to continue. "All my life I thought that respect came from fear, from status. I grew up seeing people bow their heads to my father, to my family. I thought that was normal, that it was what I deserved too." His voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the uncomfortable emotion of confronting his own flaws. "When I saw you simple, quiet, observing the cars, I thought I had the right to diminish you. Somehow it made me feel more important." Ryan listened attentively, without interrupting. There was a genuine vulnerability in Marcus's words, an openness that perhaps he himself didn't expect to demonstrate. "I can't undo what I did," Marcus continued, "but I can guarantee it made me think a lot about who I want to be." Ryan smiled, extending his hand to Marcus. "Then I accept your apology. The true value of a person was never in the clothes they wear or the car they drive." The two shook hands, sealing not exactly a friendship but a mutual understanding, a lesson that no money could buy. "If you want to take a ride in the Golden Star someday, just let me know," offered Ryan with genuine goodwill. Marcus laughed, surprised by the offer. "Seriously? Why not? It's just a car. Beautiful, fast, expensive, but still just a car." Marcus nodded, beginning to understand what Ryan meant. He said goodbye and walked away with lighter steps, like someone leaving behind a weight they didn't even know they were carrying. Carly returned to Ryan's side, impressed with the outcome of the situation. "You seem to have a natural talent for teaching lessons without giving sermons," she observed. "I just believe that examples speak louder than words," he replied, opening the door of the Golden Star. "Would you like a ride? We can continue the interview on the way." Carly hesitated only for an instant before accepting. As she settled into the soft leather seat, she realized that the story she would write would be very different from what she had initially imagined. It wouldn't just be about a luxury auction or an exclusive car. It would be about values, about humility as a conscious choice, about how appearances can deceive even the most astute. Ryan started the vehicle, and the engine responded with a smooth and powerful roar. "Where are we going?" asked Carly, as the Golden Star glided out of the parking lot. "Do you know the Ridge Lookout?" suggested Ryan. "The view of the city at night is impressive. We can continue our conversation there." As they drove through the illuminated streets of Richmond, Carly couldn't help but notice how Ryan handled the vehicle. There was a naturalness in his movements without any ostentation. The $20 million car was treated with respect, but without excessive reverence. "You told me your grandfather lost everything in a drought," commented Carly, resuming the conversation. "How did that affect your family?" Ryan smiled, recalling stories so often heard during family dinners. "My grandfather Joseph used to say that drought was the best thing that happened to him. He lost the crop, almost lost the land, but gained wisdom. He learned about diversification, about resilience. When my father took over, he implemented innovative irrigation techniques, expanded beyond monoculture. Each crisis taught a lesson that strengthened us." The car climbed the winding road toward the lookout. In the distance, the city lights created a carpet of earthly stars, a silent spectacle of urbanity. "The biggest lesson I learned from my father was about value," continued Ryan. Not the monetary value of things, but the value of people, relationships, land. Money is fuel, not destination, he always says. When they reached the lookout, the city stretched below them, majestic in its nocturnal glow. Ryan parked the car in a privileged spot, from where the view was particularly impressive. "It's beautiful," murmured Carly, contemplating the panorama. "When I was a child, my father would bring me to places like this whenever we visited a new city," Ryan recounted. "Look from above," he would say. "That way you understand that we are all small, all equal under the same sky." Carly smiled, understanding more and more the man beside her. The story she would write wouldn't just be about the Golden Star, or about the heir who disguised himself as a common man. It would be about choices, about wealth that goes beyond the material, about the strength that comes from knowing your own roots. "You know what impressed me most today?" she asked, looking directly at Ryan. "What?" "How you transformed a moment of humiliation into an opportunity to teach, without resentment, without revenge, just clarity." Ryan reflected for a moment, his eyes fixed on the city lights stretching below them. "I think I learned that from the land. In the countryside, there's no use getting angry when a storm destroys the crop or when drought punishes the soil. Nature isn't good or bad, it simply is. The same goes for people. Marcus isn't a villain. In a story where I'm the hero, we're just people, with our failures, our successes, our lessons to learn." The gentle night wind enveloped the lookout, bringing with it the distant aroma of earth and vegetation. Carly closed her notebook, feeling that she had captured something much more valuable than a simple report about a luxury car auction. "Thank you for the interview, Ryan, and for the lesson." He smiled, turning his gaze to the journalist. "The story hasn't ended yet, Carly. It never does, actually. Each day we write a new chapter, learn a new lesson, find a new horizon." The Golden Star gleamed under the moonlight, a symbol no longer of status or material wealth, but of values that transcended the tangible. A reminder that in the end, we are not judged by the cars we drive or the clothes we wear, but by the mark we leave on the hearts of those who cross our path. Dear listeners, we hope Ryan Mitchell's journey has touched your hearts and provoked reflections on the values that truly matter in life. Often we allow ourselves to be carried away by appearances, missing the opportunity to meet extraordinary people who hide under simple clothes and discreet smiles. To continue this transformative experience, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories about appearances that deceive and the lessons we learn when we look beyond the superficial. Find this exclusive playlist by clicking on the link to the left of the screen. If this narrative about humility and character resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like on the video. Each day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of human relationships, essential values, and the transformations that happen when we allow respect and empathy to guide our actions. Share in the comments your own experiences with hasty judgments and what you learned when you got to know someone better that you had initially underestimated. Your story can inspire other listeners to see beyond appearances. We're eager to continue this conversation in the comments and bring even more narratives that touch the heart and feed the soul. Until the next story.